So as with all of our presentations here at Rural Roads University, we like to begin with an acknowledgement of the traditional lands. So Royal Roads University is located on the traditional lands of the Kusepsum and Lekwungen ancestors and families. This statement means that we at RRU recognize the importance of Indigenous and non-Indigenous people's relationships, and we continue to learn to understand the history, present, and future scopes of Indigenous peoples. This is a great time to test out the chat box. Feel free to let us know where you're joining us from and what lands you're located upon, or take this as an opportunity to get more familiar with the history of your lands. We are here today to talk all things learning and technology here at Rural Roads University. My name is Selena Kunar, and I'm an education specialist here at RRU. And I'm thrilled to be joined by Dr. Elizabeth Child, professor and program head of our Master of Arts in Learning and Technology. Hi, Elizabeth. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Selena.
We're going to get to know Elizabeth a bit more in a few slides here, but for now, we'd love to know a little bit more about all of you. So again, that chat box, it's a great place to let us know, why are you joining us today? What are you hoping to learn about? What sector are you currently in? This program brings together people from a variety of professional backgrounds, and we'll get to that a little bit more throughout the session, but it's always neat to see who we have in the room with us today. We're going to head into a quick run through of the Royal Roads University experience. Of course, dive into program information. We're going to walk through what an application process looks like, and then cap off with some time for some questions and conversation. So with that, let's get started. So on this slide, we have just a quick snapshot of Royal Roads University. So on this slide, you can see Hatley Castle, our Japanese gardens, a Esquimalt Lagoon, which is actually a registered bird sanctuary, and then a picture here depicting online learning. This is all very relevant for our learning and technology programs, as we offer our programs in both a blended and online formats. So online meaning just that, your program is completed completely online, and blended is where a majority of your program is done online, but you join us for short learning intensives on campus to meet your cohort and connect with your faculty in person. So here at Rural Roads, we've been moving through online learning for over 25 years. So while the world is in an extraordinary time moving through COVID-19, Rural Roads University was well posed to support our students moving from on-campus learning to online learning, and support our learners moving through online learning while the rest of their world might have moved online as well. But again, we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into our program slides. So to do that, I will pass the phone over to you, Elizabeth.
Super. Thank you, everybody. Great to see some of the information that's coming into the chat, and lovely to be here with you. Thanks for making so much time for this today. I know everyone's schedules are very packed, so I'm hoping that you get what you need out of this conversation today, and feel free to just pop in the chat as you have questions if we haven't covered them as we go. I'm going to give you a sense of just the overview of the program. There are a variety of different programs. And Selena, are you advancing or am I advancing the slide? Thank you. Wonderful. And so the Masters of Arts in Learning and Technology and the diploma, graduate diploma in Learning and Technology, have these 10 program learning outcomes that really inform their core. We're going to also talk today about the Graduate Certificate of Instructional Design and the Diploma in Technology Enabled Learning, which also have many of these similar outcomes. There's a few slightly different ones, so we'll speak to that. These program learning outcomes, I'm going to call it the MALLET program. That's the way that most people tend to pronounce the acronym, or the DIPLAT. So coming out of a program review, which is done every 5 years for programs in post-secondary in our province of British Columbia, we have external people review the program, look at evaluations, look at feedback. And one of the things that came out in 2015 when that was done was a need to refresh the program. And so this program went under a big refresh in 2017. And that's where these learning outcomes come from. They come from talking to a cross-sectoral representation of people that employ graduates of the program, that were alumni, that were students, faculty, and expert that work in the space of learning and technology. And so you can see in here, one of the key ones that I like to highlight is contribute meaningfully to digital learning communities and networks. And there are a variety of ways you'll do that in the program, but it is something where you're definitely engaging not only with the cohort that you're learning with, the community you're learning with, but also you're engaging with the communities that come into the learning and technology space from a variety of sectors. We have the next slide, Selena, please. So you've heard me use sectors a couple times. One of the things that I really love about working in this space, and I've been in this space for over 25 years, which is a little bit of a, oh my gosh, is that it's such a cross-sectoral space. So we have people in the program that are from the military, training and development officers. We have not-for-profit NGO training officers that are in the program. We have K-12 educators. We have professors in higher education at the college level. We have people in finance, training and development in corporate, and we have industry training creators, training providers. So it's really quite a wide breadth and scope of people that are attracted to the program and that are doing the work in these spaces. We also have representation from not only across Canada and the United States and North America, but also throughout the rest of the world. So we've had folks from the UK, from India, from Asia, and from Australia and New Zealand as well. So you really do get a nice diverse perspective. And what we hear from students quite a bit is that wow, I thought my issues and challenges were only in my setting, in my organization. And I was so thrilled to hear that they happen in other places and that I can learn and try some of those tips and strategies people are doing in other places with my group. So you really get to have that benefit of learning the content, but also learning from each other. One of the things that Royal Roads prides itself on, and I think is really critical, is our learning, teaching, and research model, the LTRM. And a piece of that really speaks to applying your studies to real world challenges. So in these courses, you're going to be working individual assignments, you're going to be doing team assignments. The assignments themselves are structured so that you can take what you're learning and apply them in your setting right away. And so that's one of the core pieces of Royal Roads. And thank you, Christine, for popping the link to the LTRM in the chat. It's something to take a look at because it will give you a sense of, it's a signature pedagogy of Royal Roads, and every school takes it up a bit different, but it'll give you a sense of how at Royal Roads we view learning and teaching and research. Selena, if we could have the next slide, please. So I mentioned quickly in the beginning, this whole webinar ends up being quick, so please jump in if there's questions. There's sort of this suite of programs around learning and technology. There's the master's degree, there's a graduate certificate, which is the one at the bottom down here in instructional design, and then there's 2 graduate diplomas. The graduate diploma in learning and technology is the first 6 courses of the master's degree. The graduate diploma in technology enhanced learning and design has 3 courses from the grad certificate and 3 courses from the master's degree. So there is that interconnection and synergy through them. It can get a bit confusing when you're looking at them and reading course calendar descriptions, so don't hesitate. You can reach out to the enrollment advisors, you can reach out to myself, Selena, if you have questions, and of course, feel free to ask them here too. We do have a hashtag that since 2017, students and alumni in the program have really started to take up and use. And so that also gives you a really nice sense of what are people talking about in this program? What's top of mind for them? So dipping into there on Twitter from time to time can be a really useful and insightful place to go. Next slide, please. I love this slide. I love this slide now that we are where we are in the world, because pre-pandemic, you know, many of us who'd worked in this space for many years still people, I mean, my own family would say, what is it that you do exactly? And now there is this amplification and identification with, okay, there is a space and a role for instructional design, for training design and development, for learning design and development. And there are multiple terms that intersect and overlap. The second bullet there was really interesting. That's from 2018, I believe. And so at that time, the role of an instructional designer, learning designer was ranked as the 38th best job in North America in terms of growth and potential for that space. Average entry is a master's degree. We're seeing that, of course, given our current global context, that of course has changed just because the increased demand. So you're seeing people with variations of that, but looking towards that master's accreditation is an important piece of it. There's a link here, and we'll get the slide deck afterwards. Dr. Tony Bates has a great series actually on the Contact North website, but he speaks directly to instructional design pre, during, and post-pandemic. So there's a bit of future forecasting there. For those of you that are really trying to think, I'm wondering, is this a space I want to get into? Some people take this program because they want to validate the work they're doing already, and you may be working in this space already. So there's really quite a range there, but this will give you a sense of where people are seeing this field move and shift. Next slide, please, Selena. So getting into the nitty-gritty. We'll start with the certificate first. Many people choose the certificate because they're not sure they want to commit to a full master's right away. And that's absolutely understandable and totally fine. Other people choose the certificate because they're looking particularly for these courses or content around these courses. And some choose the certificate because they think they might want to do the diploma. They're just going to start here first. Or they may want to sort of dabble in a bit of both. You'll see the courses are slightly different. So as you move along, you'll see they do all start with the same. They all start with preparatory courses that are focused on the academic integrity piece, the ITAI, and then introducing you to both Royal Roads and to the community of learners you'll be learning with and working with in your program. And that's what we do through the link. So it's a 2-week online experience that's really focused on getting you connected and starting to connect and establish a sense of community that you can continue to co-create together. In the Certificate of Instructional Design, the 3 courses, and they flow from left to right. There's one around graphic design for instructional designers. So really getting into the nitty-gritty about how and why we design graphics, user interface design. And it is instructed by someone who had previously been a graphic designer and now is a graphic designer and instructional designer and works with us in our Center for Teaching and Educational Technology. The middle course really focuses on integrating principles of project management and principles of training design or instructional design. And so it's looking through that lens of not just a big general approach to project management, but if you have to manage the project, as most people do, as an instructional designer, what does that look like for you? And so that's where you really spend a lot of time. The final course really focuses on instructional design theories, models, approaches in this technology mediated space. So that's where you're going to get into a little bit about learning theory, a little bit of models of design, approaches to design, agile design, things like that. So you're going to explore those in those spaces. So that's the certificate. It's 7 months and it's 9 graduate level credits. People always ask us, so how many hours a week do I have to spend on the coursework? And so roughly, a rule of thumb is 3 credits at the graduate level in British Columbia is roughly about 100 hours of quote unquote instruction, which includes everything from the readings you have to do to prepare, the activities you do as part of the course, the assignments you need to do to submit as part of the course, and in our case, the team assignments that are part of every course. What I hear from students in my role as program head is, yep, so if we do the math over a 9-week course, that's roughly 10 hours a week. Most people spend more. Some people spend 10. And it really is how much you want to embrace the gift that you're giving yourself of diving in and taking a graduate level program. The courses have been designed and scoped to be sort of in that 3 credit range, but many people do spend more. And where they do spend more is they connect with their team, or they connect with a part of the content that's so interesting to them. They just dive right in because they have access to all of the library databases, all these research articles that you're not necessarily able to access unless you're behind a university, in a university library setting. So that gives you a sense and range. Do you have to show up every day at a certain time? No. The time you spend and how you spend your time in a week really is up to you. The courses are structured so that the new week, the new unit, the new focus for the week will start on a Monday. And so there will be expectation that you will be in the course doing something, reading, posting, discussing every day. There will be a mix of some synchronous sessions and some that will be all just completely asynchronous. Most people find that they dip into the courses, a little bit each day and then spend a chunk of time in the evenings or a chunk of time on the weekends. And that's how they navigate this space for most people. When we start looking at the technology enhanced learning design, this one is where you're stretching from the graduate certificate of instructional design, so that very focused graphics, project management, intro to instructional design, into now more of what that master's program speaks to around networked learning, openness, digital mindset. So some of those very early program outcomes that you saw flash up on the screen impact here. And that's because you're taking 3 courses now. So you've taken those instructional, the graduate certificate in instructional design courses, and now you're taking 3 from the master's program. So Selena, if you maybe want to pop that slide up, we can see. So you can see the certificate in instructional design courses in that kind of lighter blue. And then as we move more in the purple, these are 3 courses from the graduate, the master's degree. So one is really deepening your knowledge and understanding around foundations of learning and technologies and the myths associated with them, like learning styles. The next one really talks about innovation, design, and learning, and that intersection of various design models, how they can foster innovation in different places. So you'll explore design thinking in great detail. You'll explore some of the traditional models like ADDIE and Agile, but also some of the ones that are sprint models that are sort of at the more of the leading edge right now. And the last one in this diploma is leading change in digital learning. And it is there in the master's, and it's there here in this diploma, because that is what we hear from stakeholders all the time. People that are doing this work, people that are hiring grads to do this work say it's no longer the type of work where it just gets passed under the door and then a training module comes back. It is the type of work where people have to be informed and research driven to sit at the decision-making table and help educate the rest of the decision makers around the value, the importance, and the consequences of making some of their learning and design decisions. So that's really the focus of that final course there in the diploma. Thanks, Selena. The next slide, please. Again, I would love this slide. What I would like to do with this slide actually is get you to answer it. Why learning and technology? So you can see here the main bullet points. And of course, now that we are all, this has been amplified globally as people have moved to learn and work online. These are changing too, right? So yes, technologies are increasingly common. And now what are we expecting of them? What are we expecting of these learning spaces now that globally so many more people have been in them? I mean, prior to the pandemic, online was an option for people and it was a choice. And people now have experienced it en masse. And so that's driving some great innovation and really great learnings and different expectations from our participants in our training, from our learners in our higher ed settings, and from just the general public's perspective. So the intersection between the affordances of technology and what we know from the neuroscience of learning and how people learn is just that much more amplified today. And it really speaks to the value of having this base to step from. Next slide, please, Sonia. Thank you. So on this slide, you can see both the master's program and the diploma in learning and technology together. So I'll go from top to bottom quickly. You'll see the gray pieces are those very same prep pieces that the GCID and the DipTELD were. And then there's the light blue box. That's the first set of 18 credits. So that's the diploma, and those are the foundational courses for the master's degree. And so we've spoken to a few of them. I'm going to speak just briefly to each of them. The very first one is really focused on digital learning environments, networks, and communities, on developing your digital presence and digital identity. Who do you want to be in this space? What are the risks and opportunities associated with being in these spaces? How do you create training and learning opportunities for people in these spaces? And consider issues of privacy, consider issues of digital identity, consider issues of digital literacy and digital divide. You'll then move into an intro to research course that's really focused on critical reading and writing. What does it mean to read research, and how can we do it effectively, efficiently, thoughtfully? And what does it mean to write it? So consume it and create it. And how do we write academic paragraphs? How do we structure a logical argument that's supported with evidence more than just our opinion? And so you'll really dig into that in that course and start exploring with, what is a good research question? What kind of theoretical frameworks exist in this space that help guide our work? And then you can see the next three are the ones that we just spoke about in the diploma for technology enhanced learning. So the foundations one, the design one, and the leading change one. The final course in the diploma and the sixth course in the master's is inquiry course, in the sense that it is more of an open course designed for you to really dive into issues around learning and technology. This is my example. So for example, there's not a course in this program about how to financially model online, blended, hybrid, high flex, multimodal learning. We don't have that course because we're confined by 10 courses in a program. But that's a really important thing for some people. And so depending on your role. And so if that's an area that's really of interest to you, this is a course that allows you to explore that area of interest and dive in detail and share out more broadly. You then have three completion pathway options. One is the traditional master's thesis, where you're going to collect data from live individuals and do a thesis work with your thesis supervisor. The second is an applied research project. And in that one, you actually do get a little bit of a needs assessment data collection, and you do secondary research. And the final completion pathway option is a digital learning consulting project. And that's where you're working more tightly with a sponsor organization. You're diving into the literature around this research question, working with your sponsor to actually create something that they will then use in their setting. For the thesis and the digital learning consulting project, you do need to apply. Some people are not accepted into those pathways. Depending on their application, it's adjudicated by a committee. You will always be accepted into the applied research project pathway. And we find many of the research questions that people want to explore, that pathway works very well for them. If you choose the thesis pathway, you'll notice it's 12 credits. So you've done your foundational credits in your master's degree, and then you move on and do your thesis, and that completes. You do an advanced research course, then your thesis, and then that completes your master's. If you choose the applied research project or the consulting project, there are more courses before you move into those, because those completion pathways are 6 credits. So you would go on and you would take a course called Creating Digital Resources. So you're actually making digital learning resources, and a course for facilitating in these spaces. And then you do your advanced research course, which is basically where you're creating your proposal to then do the next then final piece of your program. Thanks, Lydia. So this is exciting. This is the place you're gonna want to. See, I get talking too fast and then my tongue gets all tied. This is a place that will be really helpful as you're doing more digging into this to make sure the program's a fit for you. So this is the program page for the site. All of the courses, because we have opened this as a design principle, that big circle circles the link to all of the courses. You can see every course in this program. You can go in now. You can see what the assignments are. You can read all the readings if they're public, which most of them are. Some of you have to go behind the library firewall, but most of them are. And you can get in and see student blogs. So you can see what students are creating right now in the program. And so this will be very helpful for you as you go in and take a look and explore in more detail, because you'll be able to get a sense of what you actually do in these courses. Next slide, Selena, please. We use, because open is one of our design principles, we obviously then couldn't be locked down behind an LMS for everything. So we use WordPress, and that's what you saw earlier in that page before. We use WordPress for all of our courses, and then each course has a companion Moodle shell, and that's where you would upload your assignments, and it's where we have any just community course-related participant discussions as opposed to the blog itself. Each of you will be given a WordPress blog as part of your student experience, and each course will ask you to do a blog as different parts of the course activities. So you'll get comfortable and familiar with posting on your blog as well, and you'll have that going forward after the program to share as more of an e-portfolio or to continue to build and share with your larger network. As you're blogging throughout the program, as you're working throughout the program, you're going to be meeting and being exposed to people who work in this space and in this field, and you'll be contributing to the knowledge of that network, and you'll be learning from it as well. And so this is a way that you can do that. Next slide, please, Selena. So this is an example of your WordPress site. It comes very bare bones and basic, but you can see on the right-hand side how students have evolved them over time. And in that first course in the Masters, we spend a lot of time working on your site, thinking about who do you want to be in this space? How do you want to contribute your knowledge and your learning to this field and to others in this space? Selena noted in the chat that all the courses are Creative Commons licensed. So if Creative Commons is new for you, there's a link there for it as well. And there's also a link to a virtual symposium presentation on Creative Commons that Clint Lalonde did from BC Campus. Next slide, please. Everybody wants to know how you get assessed in what you're doing. Of course, right? It's an important piece of this. There are no final exams. This is not an exam-based program. It's a graduate level program. And so at the graduate level, you're expected to critically analyze and synthesize and make sense and meaning of what you're doing and what you're reading, and back it with literature that demonstrates your ability to synthesize and integrate. And so ways that that's done is through your contribution. So you'll see when you go into the courses under assessment, you'll see all the different things, and there's always a contribution. And that contribution is you contributing to the course discussion, the group discussion, as well as the larger network. There's team assignments. So each course, with the exception of your completion pathways, will have a team assignment, and you'll be working together. And we have a wonderful team coach that works with us and is scaffolded through the courses in the programs to give you support when and as you need as online teams. There'll be individual assignments, self-assessment, peer assessment, and then reflective assignments. Again, I think that probably the best way to get a sense of what this actually looks like beyond the 30,000 foot view is to go into that program page, pick a course at random that looks interesting to you, and then take a look at their assessment, read some of the activities that they're asked to do in those courses, and think about how would you respond. Because of the openness of one of our design principles, there are some courses. So for example, the one that I have the pleasure of teaching in the program, we create a wiki book. And so each year you add to what others before you have written and contributed as their part of the assignment, and you take it from there and then deepen it and extend the work. So you'll also have lots of opportunities to see what others have done and to build on work and share it more broadly. All right, next slide, please, Selena. I'm just scanning the chat here. Oh, this is my favorite one. So if you take nothing else away from today, ever, please take away that we do have an annual virtual symposium. We have all the sessions since 2017 when it launched recorded, and you can access it at that link. You're welcome to come live. It's open to everybody and anyone. There's no cost. There's no special link to get in. It's all, maybe not quite as elegantly as I'd like it captured in a Google Doc, but feel free to go in, share the recordings widely. We have 3 tracks in the symposium. One of them is a student track, so students present on their thesis, on their applied research project, on their consulting project, so it can demystify for people that are new what the end in mind looks like. We also have a track that's basically stories from the field, and it's people across sectors who work in this space talking about the work that they do. And we've had people over the years from corporate, from Department of Defense, from non-for-profits, from healthcare. So, you know, any of those, if they are interested, worth dipping in and taking a look. And then we do have sort of the experts of the field track, where we've had some folks come in over the years and speak from their different viewpoints and vantage points on the field. So this coming year, it's April 11th till the 15th, 2022. You'll start to see more of that coming out on social media and different places, but feel free to dive in and share this as broad and widely as you'd like to. It's very helpful to have other people come and join in the conversations. So I'm going to take a minute. Oh, Christine has been great jumping in for Mary's question around capacities. That's wonderful. Just to add a little more to that, Mary, I would say, you know, currently, for example, this most recent intake, we have about 22, 23. The year before, we had maybe around 18. So we seem to hover anywhere from 22, and then we were up to 32. So it really does depend. It also, we find it changes as people go through the program because life does happen. And so there are reasons that people have to step away, a medical leave of absence, or just take some time and space so they can re-engage in a more meaningful way. And Royal Roads has been doing this for over 25 years. So there's lots of mechanisms to do that. And I always talk with students and say, you know, when you have that moment of, okay, I need to stop this right now, don't send the email that says, please withdraw me from everything. Send the email that says, I need to stop for a while. How do I do that? Because you can step away and step out of program and then step back in. So because of that, sometimes as you move through the program, you may have fewer or you may have new people join you because they've stepped away and are coming back in when the course time is right for them. Next slide, please, Selena. Thank you. So I'm going to turn it back over to you to talk about how to apply, but I'm going to scan the chat so that I can just make sure we've answered questions and maybe pop a few more links in, and I'll explain that when we get to the end, what I've added. So thanks, Selena.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Elizabeth. And as Elizabeth is moving through our chat box, this is a great time to pop in any questions that came up for you as we explored all of the different programs we talked about today. I'm going to take just a few minutes and run through our application process. So please, as things come up for you, as we move through that, let's talk about it. So to kick us off, we're going to talk about our admissions into these programs. So standard admissions would be a 4-year or comparable undergraduate degree from a recognized post-secondary institution, as well as at least 3 years of professional experience in leadership or management that is directly related to the program of interest. So you'll notice we have an asterisk there when it comes to experience in leadership or management. And that's because if you head to our website, you can see a really wonderful depiction of all the different things that constitute leadership. So it doesn't need to be positional leadership. So, you know, manager of, director of. Leadership can be volunteer experience. Leadership can be situations where you find yourself leading self and others. So take a browse through our website and look at that definition of leadership, because I think you'll be surprised that more often than not, folks in this space are showing up as leaders in many different ways. So at Royal Roads, we also have something called flexible admissions. Flexible admissions is wonderful because it's for folks that may not have the traditional academic background, but who have been working and succeeding and exploring in this space professionally for a very long time. So for flexible admissions, those are folks who have normally been working for about 7 years and then have a minimum of 2 years of professional experience in leadership or management that is directly related to the program of interest. So this is wonderful because it allows our cohorts to have a beautiful blend of folks with academic backgrounds, with professional backgrounds, different vantage points coming together to solve real world problems in real time. As all of our learners are typically folks who are working full time, what's great is that our classrooms become sort of think tanks and conversation spaces for people to bring in situations that are happening in their workplace and have this collective mind, this group of people move through that with you and look at different ways to explore what's going on for you. So we're so proud to have both standard admissions and flexible admission here at Royal Roads. Flexible admissions is assessed on a case-by-case basis. So if you have any questions about what that could mean for you, or you want to talk through your academic, professional, or personal background, please connect with us because we're so excited to have those conversations with you. So the application process itself, well, as most things these days, it begins with an online application. That online application comes with a fee of $128.81. And once your application is in, you can then move through submitting some of your supporting documents. So supporting documents include things like official transcripts, your personal statement, your detailed resume, and 2 letters of reference. Our website, once again, is a wonderful resource for moving through putting together your supporting documents. It has information, for example, for your personal statement, such as what kind of questions do you want to be answering in your personal statement? What are we hoping to learn about you? For your detailed resume, it has some tips and tricks as how to structure that document to make sure all of your accomplishments shine bright. And then some more administrative information as well, such as how you can submit your transcripts to our offices and how your referees can send in their letters of reference. So upcoming intakes. Well, we are just around the corner to a few of these. So we have our Master of Arts and Graduate Diploma in Learning and Technology starting March 29th, 2022, putting its application deadline at the end of this year, December 28th, 2021. For our graduate diploma in technology enhanced learning and design and our graduate certificate in instructional design, those will actually begin in January. So January 17th, 2022, putting its application deadline to October 17th, 2021. Something that's important to note here at Royal Roads, we do something called rolling admissions. So we don't actually wait until that noted application deadline to look at all the applications that come in. No, what we actually do is we assess your case as it's completed and brought to our offices. So if your online application is in, and a majority of your supporting documents as well, we can let you know about your status within the program. So that's where our programs can fill up a bit quickly as we're allowing anyone who's met the qualifications and who is going to be a wonderful addition to our classroom, we let them know about their seat. So if you have any questions about these dates, about the application process, let us know. The main thing to know is it's important to get your online application in before the application deadline. So a question that we get a lot is financial aid. So at Royal Roads, we have a wonderful financial aids and awards office who have their fingertips on resources, both internal and external to our campus, that can help support you through funding your post-secondary education. So our offices can help talk about things like loans, awards, research scholarships, or any other types of funding you might have questions about. On the slide, we have their website as well as their direct phone lines. So always, please reach out to them if you have any questions or if you're interested in what you might qualify for. Our enrollment services team. So Christine is just one beautiful example of the team we have here at Royal Roads to help support you as you move through your application journey. So you can connect with Christine and her team at learn.more@royalroads.ca. And if you're joining us from outside of Canada, our international admissions and registration team would be more than happy to help you. So with that, we have come to the end of our formal presentation, though my chat box has a few red alerts. So let's see what's going on there. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and perhaps pass the microphone over to you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Selena. Thanks for doing that, because I was scrolling back through the chat and it occurred I had missed a couple of details that might be helpful for people. So one thing that we hear often from students is, oh, right, you're not quite like a normal institution. And I always wonder what they mean when they say that. And what they mean is we're not semestered. So we don't have fall semester, we don't have a winter semester, or spring, summer semester. When you start, for example, at the end of March next year, or January next year, the courses are 9 weeks long, one course at a time for 9 weeks. Then you have a week break in between, because we really do need to model and practice some digital well-being and balance. And then you start your next 9-week course. And so that's how you go through the programs. If you're choosing to do the on-campus learning intensive, so the blended program of the master's degree or the diploma in learning and technology, you do take 2 courses at the same time at the very beginning of your program. So you do some work online for those 2 courses, then you would come to campus for 2 weeks, do some work together face-to-face in those 2 courses, and then be online again in those 2 courses for some more work before they wrap up. You then join the rest of the fully online students in course 3 of the program, fully online. So that's how the blended piece works. Sometimes that's a bit, people are like, oh, I didn't quite understand that. So that's how that part works. Both programs are considered full-time enrollment programs. So you are working through a master's degree and you're a full-time student as you do it. That becomes important when you're thinking of funding or different options like that. The other piece that I popped in the chat was that I'd forgotten to mention is Royal Roads, particularly this program and the diploma program, are recognized schools for the Institute for Performance and Learning, which is the Canadian, used to be Canadian Society of Training and Development, and now it's I4PL. And so that's a professional body where you can get a certification that you have achieved different levels of their professional competencies. And so we're a recognized school there, and this program is a recognized program, which means when you've completed it, if that's something you want to do, then you can put your documents forward and you're already sort of a bit ahead of the game to get your professional certification alongside getting your academic accreditation. So that's something to consider as well.
We had a great question come in that might be for Christine. We had a question around, how is tuition paid? Is it per term, all at once, per year, per course? How do we move through that? And thank you, Christine, for putting more information about tuition and fees, the link there. So if you were to click that link, you can then search by education and technology, and the costs, both domestic and international, for all our programs will show up. But if you don't mind sharing, Christine, in the chat box a little bit about the payment schedule, that would be wonderful.
And while you're doing that, Christine, another thing that I would just highly encourage all of you to do when you go dipping in and exploring and seeing the student blogs and reading some of the stuff they're doing, reach out to them, send them a little note saying, hey, I'm thinking about this program. What do you think? You know, they'll be thrilled that someone read their blog and be very excited to respond. But also, you know, I find most of our students are, and the graduates as well, and the enrollment advisors are great at connecting you. They're happy to talk about their experience and talk about, you know, this is actually how I made it work while I was working full time and I was caring for littles, or while I was working full time and I was taking care of my parents, or maybe you were doing all of that and then some and more. So it's really worth, you know, taking people up on that offer and connecting with current students or alumni to talk a little bit of just the realities of doing this work and doing the rest of your life. We did a webinar last September with 3 of our students around learning in the time of a pandemic. So I'll find the link and pop that in here because it was really insightful and they had some great tips and suggestions. One of the big tips that they shared that I hear all the time in my role is you do have to take something off your plate. So you can't expect to jump in and take a graduate degree or diploma and just add it to everything else you're doing. for 2 years, something, or 1 year, depending on what you choose, something will have to give and you'll have to set it aside. And everyone, that will be different for everyone. But where we've seen students be very successful and really be able to dive in to the level that they want to, right? Because you're making an investment in yourself and you're giving yourself this gift. And so being able to give yourself the gift of time to go with it is something that we see be really valuable as students move through the program.
Thanks so much, Elizabeth. Before we close, I just want to share what Christine popped in the chat box around tuition and payment schedules. So some great information around if you're looking at graduate certificates, it typically will not be installment based. So you'll be looking at likely the cost of the whole program at one time, given the short duration of the program itself. Though for our longer programs, so for example, the Master of Arts or graduate diplomas, our student account office typically invoices for tuition costs on courses coming up for registration 30 days before that course starts. And your tuition is then due 2 weeks before that course starts. So thanks so much, Christine, for providing that answer. Elizabeth, I think we have a question for you from Megan. Could you please explain more about the learn at your own pace work? As you mentioned, there's no set time for the class each week.
Great question, Megan. Absolutely. So you'll see in the courses when you're going to take a look, there's a schedule, and each week there'll be a unit that you're working on and readings that go with it and activities that you have to do. One of the activities might be on 1 week to come to a synchronous session, but there'll also be other things that you have to do during that time. Some weeks there won't be any synchronous session and you'll be working with your team trying to get an assignment done, and you'll be working on the activities that are required for that week. One of the activities might be posting on your blog and getting your blog post ready. It might be reading 5 articles and summarizing them in an infographic and getting that up and ready. So the activities really dictate that. So that's the learn at your own pace piece, in the sense is you're not having to come from 4 to 5 every day for a week, right? But you are having to dip in every day and make sure that you're owning the learning, right? It's your learning. And so you're owning how you plan and schedule your way through it, given the guidance of the course schedule. Michael, just to your point, there is a team assignment in every course until you get to your final completion pathways. Then it's all about you and your research question. And so the team assignments really vary. You will, in some courses, be put into teams. In some courses, you can self-select, because that's the reality of the world that we live and work in. Not everybody gets, we want to give you as much opportunity in different settings. And the team assignment, generally you will meet, you'll create a quick team charter, figure out how people like to communicate best. Then you'll get down to the work, figure out how you're going to divvy it up, who's going to add what to whom, who's going to be the final editor on this. And you'll get down to that work. Our team coach can support leading up to that. In some of the early courses, she actually comes in and does different sessions or sends resources and tips. You can always, as a team, reach out to her. We've had teams reach out if they're in that, storming phase of the forming, storming, norming, and performing of teams. They'll reach out and they'll say, listen, we just need you to come to one of our meetings and help us get back on track. And that's kind of, that's definitely part of what she's happy to do. So that, where that team assignment is placed, you can imagine in 9 weeks, there's really not a lot of time, right? So week 1 is getting everybody up to speed on what the course is about, and week 9 is getting everything wrapped up and the final assignment in. So with the 7 weeks remaining in between, somewhere in there, there'll be a team assignment and 1 or 2 individual assignments. In some courses, the team assignment will come more towards the beginning. In others, it'll be middle. And I think we do have 1 or 2 where it is the final assignment at the end. So it really varies. Sometimes the team assignment, there is a presentation that you do, a recorded presentation that you post. Other times it's a product that you create. So I hope that helps answer the question a little bit. And then as you dig into some of the courses, you'll be able to see just a bit more detail of how each course takes it up. Good, super.
Amazing. And, to Megan's question, I'll just add, it's so wonderful about, so we use Moodle as the host of our courses. Also, of course, the course site for Mallet. But what's great is because of the asynchronous component, I find myself, I'm a little bit of a night owl when I like to be doing my homework when the world is quiet. Though some of my cohort members, they were early birds. They like to work when the world is quiet because I was still sleeping. So you can really be checking into Moodle and getting your coursework done at times that work best for you. Um, and that's great as well, particularly when you're doing group work and your group is across different time zones.
Yeah.
So then utilizing different collaborative tools, collaborative documents for getting the work in when you can, that works best for you.
Yeah, we definitely see that a lot across the time zones where people use it to their advantage, right? And daisy chain the work as they're going and daisy chain the learning too.
So with that, I think we might have answered all of the questions in the chat box. This is a great time to pop in any questions that might remain. I'm just going to take a quick cruise through the chat box to make sure that we didn't miss anything.
Oh, sorry, I'm typing away here, but I'm just noticing Megan's comment in the chat, and you're not alone. Many of our learners have young children in the background. And so, I mean, we have one actually, I'm thinking in particular, where they would come on, we had a couple of synchronous sessions and they, okay, I have to be very quiet because I finally got them to sleep. So I'm just going to be here and be muted, but I'm here. So yeah, absolutely. Right. There are the realities of the space that you're in and the work and life environment that you have that you can use to your advantage. Right. And the program can help support that.
So I think we have indeed answered all of the questions. Elizabeth, before we sign off, was there anything else you wanted to share about learning and technology at RRU?
Not particular to the programs, but I'm just so thrilled that so many of you devoted the time today to come and learn more, because it is really such a fascinating field. And these past 2 years in our global climate have made it even more interesting and more varied, and a place where you can really make change and have an impact. So thanks for taking the first step to find out more about it. And don't hesitate to reach out if you have any more questions. I'm happy to answer them as best I can or point you in the right direction.
So with that, we will wish you a wonderful rest of your morning, afternoon, or evening, depending where in the world you're joining us and when you're watching this recording. We hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.